I'm
The
pressing
last time.
record. I'm recording right now. Wait, did you have to accept the recording on the last time for our interview?
Yeah, but you know what? I realized, so last time, even though there was like a long pause before I accepted the recording, it showed everything before I accepted.
Oh, interesting.
So once you accept, it's good for everything that happened.
Retroactive.
So if my webcam was on overnight and I was doing sorted things in my living room, it would be part of this because I accepted it.
That is good to know. I was just thinking about you saying that when you were the head of a company, it was ED at Cody. And I was thinking when I got my dad and my brother's shirts that said socialist, this was like 10, 15 years ago. And they wore their t-shirts that said socialist with an open button down over it. And it just said Cialis.
Cialis, because it would be covered.
It's like just the middle part is pretty funny. Hey, Pat, welcome to our show tonight. How you doing?
Right. Good. How are you doing? Can I just tell you, I'm going to be sweating on camera because my air conditioner is out.
Why don't you do we not have infrastructure in this country? Why don't you have air conditioning?
I mean, I blame Jill Stein because if Hillary had won in 2016, I would have air conditioning by now, clearly.
Thanks, Obama. I mean, thanks, Jill Stein. Susan Sarandon.
No, it's my fault. I mean, it's my landlord / my fault.
Yeah.
If you're a socialist, it's my landlord's fault.
It's absolutely your landlord.
All landlords are bad.
Yep.
Which I 90% agree with, but occasionally there's some good ones.
When they don't know about it, it makes it a little harder, but I hear you.
Yeah. And the concept of like hating landlords, I get it. But we, on one hand, we say you can't blame people for participating in our current system. And a lot of landlords are those people in a way. Like, I mean, we sell this thing about like, make a lot of money and become a landlord and rent out and make some more money. So,
right. Yeah.
Judge your landlords on their personal shitbaggery.
I agree 100%. I agree.
Anyway, but the important part is I get air conditioning tomorrow.
Will you actually have it tomorrow? Like, will it be fixed? Do you know for sure?
Yeah. Tomorrow morning, I get air conditioning.
What do they have? Just flip a switch? Like, how come it doesn't work?
Well, see, you don't understand poor apartment living. You are bougie. I'm so bougie. Some brunch stuff here. So I have an air conditioning unit that literally pokes out my wall. It's one of those.
It grips on your head if you go under it.
I mean, it's rough, but
that is rough. Yeah, no, you're right. In that regard, I am incredibly bougie because
you just had a decent life where you did the things you were supposed to do. And I didn't do any of that because I never cared about a lot of this stuff. So,
okay. So there are a few things I do care about because I'm super, I'm older now and I don't like being uncomfortable for a moment. And air conditioning is one of them. However, we have done so much so wrong. We've had to sell our house. We lived in an apartment for a while with the four of us, and we are now renting. And I have to say, full disclosure, we have a lovely landlady who, like, the second I ever say anything, she has somebody over there right away. So, but nice. And we're like way in debt. I mean, we haven't done it all right on any level, but we do have credit cards that we max out all the time.
Well, that's good. I mean, let me know when you get student loan debt like I have. And I brought this up before, but I think we edited it. But like, wait for it. Here's my fridge. My place is so big that my fridge is right next to my studio. But now that we're doing this podcast, I need to flip it so the door opens the other way.
You do. I agree.
I can just reach in. Then I could just reach in and get a beer.
Yeah. Well, I feel like on that note, because when you show me your refrigerator, it reminds me of Eric Adams' fake New York City apartment where he tried to prove that he actually lived in New York City. And now we have to extend a belated congratulations to the new New York City mayor, Cop Eric Adams. And I just saw something which is insane that said something like he's going to bridge the divide between progressives and conservative Democrats. And it's like, what bridge? He is what are you talking about? Like, how is that written in any journal?
I mean, propaganda. It's just pure propaganda.
It's all propaganda.
That's it. So more importantly, what is the red wine you're drinking tonight?
Oh, really? Do you have to ask?
We have sponsors. Come on.
When you're ready to send me a case of wine, it's my favorite. It's Noble Vine 667. It's a Pinot Noir. It's the trifecta. Actually, it's a fourfecta. I don't know what that is, but it's a Pinot Noir. It's a screw top. It's not expensive. But the final, and maybe most important, it's a 14.5% alcohol by volume.
Wow.
So those are the 4 things I'm always looking for. I could do without the screw top, even though I love the easy access. That's what she said. Haha. Yeah. But
I have so many jokes on that.
I know. Again, I feel like every night I get on here with you, it's like prom night all over again. But it's the rest of it are musts. Pinot, cheap, and a high alcohol volume.
Okay, that's good. So my sponsor tonight. So I always buy local beer. I mean, always meaning when I have enough money to buy local beer. And somehow this was in my shelf, but it's from San Fernando, which is not really local because I'm in Sacramento, California. But still, it's a Wolf School IPA. It's delicious. It's green. I thought this would be the same color as my green screen, which would be funny because I could just wave it around and no one could see me beer all show. Yeah.
I think you can adjust that, but that's not happening. But that's funny.
Not the case.
It's funny that it's showing up. Wait, I have a question. When you say San Fernando, is that like the San Fernando Valley?
I think that's, well, it says San Fernando Brewing Company. So
is there any other part of the address there?
Yeah, no, I mean, no. It says brewed and canned by San Fernando Brewing Company in San Fernando, California.
Because I live in the San Fernando Valley, but is that the same thing?
I think it is. I think this is probably local to you.
Local to me. Thank you for supporting my local brewery.
Sacramento loves to support LA, especially with our water.
Cheers. Yeah, this is the new water.
No, cheers. Anyway, what's going on this week? What do we got?
Slow news day once again. Slow news day. A couple things going on. We got a slaughtered president of Haiti. That's one thing. I don't know what you want to say about that. I'm going to say very little. Because
I want to say nothing. Can we just make this show about alcohol from now on?
I mean, honestly.
No politics.
That's my favorite part.
That's kind of how I'm feeling lately.
These last few days have been really unsettling with the ocean burning on many fronts. Right. I felt all of the hope that I had a year ago that was just crushed by the establishment. A lot of anger about that because I look at my kids and I think about our lives, all of us right now. COVID is the climate disaster problem that I thought our kids would have in a decade or 2 decades, which is what really made me drawn to Bernie and like taking power into our hands, 5 years ago. And to see not only COVID and the destruction of so many lives, but then the ocean burning.
Literally on fire.
On fire.
I saw it online, but it's like God turned our life into the "this is fine" meme.
Truly.
Like, this is fine. Like, people are not upset about stuff like this. I mean, sure, they're upset. It's a cute little moment, but like nothing is going to change from, granted, it's not, Biden doesn't have a lot of control over it. It's Mexico, but like, it's the oil companies, which are running our whole goddamn country.
Yeah.
The companies and the pharmaceutical companies run the world. Yeah. And so we're watching video of our ocean literally on fire. And as that's happening, Biden is not doing 1/20th of what he said he would do in his administration. He said he'd do 1 million things in his first 100 days. And we didn't see any of that.
So. Nothing's happened.
And COVID, you bring up COVID and like, we don't have Medicare for all. Fine. Nobody expected us to have Medicare for all now, but we also didn't expect to see some of the things we're seeing now with the Democrats pretending everything is fine now. And it's the same meme right now, like with COVID, everything is fine.
Everything is fine. And it's interesting to me, and it happens on so many different levels, that like when Trump was president and it was, welcome to Trump's America, every bad thing that happened and every Trump voter was expected to take some responsibility for every atrocity committed by Trump, which I'm kind of fine with that. Great. But then I'm also fine with doing the same thing for the Biden supporters. And, a third of the people who have died of COVID have died under Biden. And a third of the people who have died of COVID, study after study has shown, a third of those people could have been prevented, their deaths, if we had Medicare for All. And both parties are fighting their hearts out against it. So, it really just shows you like they're changing the narrative. They're working so hard to change the narrative. We don't track deaths anymore. We track vaccinations. We talk about, this could probably get us into who said it, red or blue.
And we should just jump in there in a second.
Yeah.
Or now. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Now.
Look at the graphic. Whoa. Look at that graphic. Holy cow.
I just realized you're on the left now and I'm on the right, which is I need to make a whole new graphic.
No way, really?
No, it's fine.
Can I just tell you, on my screen, you're above me.
Oh, keep it that way. Let's keep it.
Oh, that's just like you, Bernie, bro.
I will crop it. Yeah, it's fair. So, the red verse. Are we going into the red?
Yeah, let's do it. Who said it?
Okay.
Who said it?
Who said it? Red or blue? Let's show the graphic. Wow. Okay. Amazing.
Wow.
So here's the quote, and Twitter folks are going to know immediately who said this, but the rest of the world is a little sleepy and they're not going to advertise this on MSNBC. Okay, here's the quote. Doesn't the air just smell so much sweeter without our masks?
God, Orange Man is so gross. Fucking Cheeto in the White House. There is a literal Cheeto in the White House. Tell me, who was it? Was it Trump? Was
it Don Jr.? Was it Don Sr.? Was it
what's her face? MTG?
Neil Caputo? MTG?
Yeah. All those awful Republicans who won't wear masks.
It was the honorable doctor, but not an actual doctor. Well, sorry, I'm going to get hate mail here. You don't have my mail address, so no one's going to send me hate mail. I don't really care. Hate tweet me. It's Dr. Jill Biden.
What?
Medical
doctor Jill Biden?
Non-medical. What is she? She is a teacher. Oh, a master in ed.
She's a Bill Cosby doctor of education. They're the only PhDs who actually refer to themselves as doctor. I got it.
I'm sorry. I have a slight issue with people that insist people call them by doctor. Like at work, fine, but like if you're at a cocktail party and you say, "Call me doctor," I'm going to make jokes.
Yeah. I mean, my father was a professor, brilliant classic scholar, PhD, of course, and he would never in his whole life ask somebody to call him doctor.
It's elitist. And I'm not saying Dr. Jill is saying that. She's not. So but people are on her behalf.
Yeah, it's just lame. Anyway, she's talking about, okay, can I just say something about the whole mask thing? It does feel better not to have my mask on. Like, I am fine with that. And the thing that really bothers me about all of this is the media narrative to frame this as, isn't it great that she's saying this? And now we're going to blame people who are getting COVID. And it's become this whole red state versus blue state thing. I hate wearing my mask. I wear it all the time when I'm indoors, but I don't like it. I wouldn't blame somebody for saying what she said if they hadn't taken away the mask mandate right when we shouldn't, because we all knew that these other variants were exploding. And it wouldn't bother me so much if I didn't see the way the media has been pushing this, like, oh, isn't it so nice that she's saying that? And yes, it's better. And those red state people who don't get vaccinated, they have what's coming to them. And if Trump had said it, which he did, and he's gross, we all know it, but we keep having to do this disclaimer, like people think that I'm a right winger because I call out Democrats, but the media would have just lambasted him for talking anti-mask.
Which they should. And that's the whole point, is that it's not like when we jump in and say Jill
Doctor
Jill Biden. Every time I want to say Jill, I jump into Jill Stein too. It's a thing.
Oh, please no. That's so, yeah, I know.
Let's not. But the point is, the media should be going after her for these statements too. They should be saying the same thing. They should be challenging the current administration, and they're still so much stuck on attacking the Trump administration. Like the news every night is attacking the Trump. And by all means, pursue all the avenues against. You want to litigate Trump. I'm all for pursuing everything that happened on January 6th, the Capitol resurrection riots, whatever.
The 40 years before, which he should have been prosecuted on a million things for 4 decades.
But how do you not hold the current administration to account? You need to call them out on this. Like, the trajectory for getting people vaccinated, which is one of the things Biden gets the most credit for. He got all these people vaccinated. It's the exact trajectory that Trump was on. As terrible as Trump was and as slow as he was, the arc was to get people just as vaccinated as they are.
I mean, honestly, Project Warp Speed, or whatever it was called, Project Warp Speed, he bought all these vaccinations. I mean, he's an asshole. He told people they didn't need it. Not to wear masks. He's awful. Yeah. But he actually did procure these vaccinations that we have right now.
Right. And I mean, the thing he did that was terrible was he provided a bad example. He provided an example for people to say, ignore science and all that. And so Biden didn't do that. Biden, he did somewhat in the primaries because he tried to get people to come out and vote for him when the science said you should not be coming out to vote. But that's another issue. But
it's not right. Like, nobody calls him out for that in the news, right? It's like a memory hole.
Well, they couldn't have, because had they, then maybe you would have had some weird stop the primaries thing, or pause the primary, and who knows, because that's a mess. They had things going their way. They weren't going to stop that.
Right.
But I mean, the real ignore science stuff came from Biden when they started pushing like schools need to open. Okay. So, overnight, boom, Biden is the president. So COVID is fine. Schools need to open. Suddenly 3 feet is fine for kids in schools because we can't actually accommodate 5 feet.
Right.
And, they're right when they say, okay, the science says 3 feet and 5 feet are no different for kids in schools. And that's only because 5 feet was never safe. So 3 feet is just as unsafe as 5 feet.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing that we need to do, there's all the talk about, defund the police and how that's hurting the Democrats, which is such bullshit, as we know. But like, we've defunded schools so much that they don't have the ventilation. They don't have the ability to accommodate the safety precautions that we need. And if we don't get kids back in school, we can't get parents back to work. And so it's just like this whole snowball effect of opening up the economy and we're back to normal. And I listen to In the Bubble every once in a while when I want to stab my ears out and make them bleed, which is...
What is In the Bubble?
In the Bubble. It's Andy Slavitt, who was one in the health bureau or whatever under Obama, then came back on under Biden. And, when COVID started, he was alarmed, as we all were, and talked about that really openly. And just today, first of all, he was very much against the idea that this could have been a lab leak because Trump said it. So that was he was one of the people who pushed back against that possibility, which is now gaining some acceptance or at least some scrutiny, right? But on today's show, I could only listen to the first 20 minutes. They were talking about let's take a pause with this Delta variant, and not get too upset. When we hear about what's happening in Israel and how they're the most vaccinated country, and now they're having to go back under a lockdown and reinstate the mask mandate because as vaccinated as they are, people are now getting infected with COVID. Let's just take a pause. Everybody still go shopping. Let's get people back to school. There was somebody, I think up in Sacramento or San Francisco, some big doctor, epidemiologist, who was profiled today and trending on Twitter because she thinks that we definitely should not overstate the the concern about the Delta variant, and it might harm getting kids back to school. And we don't, we haven't done studies on how that's going to hurt kids if they don't get to go back to school. So that's that's the push.
I shared a tweet, I think yesterday, but it was by another doctor or somebody, I don't know. But basically the argument was that if you wanted to create a scenario where you have a vaccine resistant virus, you lock down, you do exactly what we've done.
Right.
So you got half the population out there vaccinated. 47% of America is vaccinated right now. And then you have everybody living like none of this matters. So,
right.
So you've got something out there in the world, and people are face to face, living their lives completely normal. And of course, what's going to eventually infect us all is something that is a variant that people vaccinated can't resist. So,
right. It's like taking half your course of antibiotics, right? It's like just enough to make yourself feel better, but it allows the bacteria to sort of like figure it out and grow.
Yeah, because you've got 53% of the people out living their lives are not vaccinated.
Right.
And they're being told right now to just business as usual.
Yep.
So half the country is just acting like nothing matters. So eventually this scenario we're creating is going to come up. There will be a variant that will fuck us all. And we just know that right now. And it doesn't matter to
make your money fast. It's like the burning ocean. I mean, that really is what it is. It's just like
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
So the Delta variant, for anyone who doesn't know it, it's super easy to catch. It's the most spreadable of them all. It's like you just, somebody said you walk by a person with it and you get it. That might be extreme. Who knows?
No, they've actually done contact tracing and gene sequencing or whatever. And they figured out like the viral load is so concentrated and it transmits so quickly that you truly can just walk past a person.
Yeah. So among that, what they don't want people talking about is a variant of that, a delta something else with an asterisk. I don't know. Right. Some scientists complete the sentence, but is more deadly than anything yet. So you've got the combination of the two. One is it's more contagious and more deadly. Right. Now, currently, people vaccinated are basically protected from it. We might get sick, we might whatever, but that's the whole point of getting vaccinated. Everyone go get vaccinated. But we've got this virus now that's highly contagious. We should be just as locked down if half the world, in our world, half our country is,
or at least there was no reason to take away the indoor mask mandate, right? Because it's like everything that we deal with this is exponential. It's not just a one-on-one thing, right? So kids 12 and under aren't vaccinated. There are immunocompromised people not vaccinated. Then there are people who just have skepticism or whatever, not vaccinated. Now we're taking away masks. There are a lot of essential workers who we don't pay essential salaries to, but okay, fine. Sacrifices to the holy dollar who have to be there. They have children. People who go shopping have children. I mean, there are a lot of holes in the shields of protection that we're just amplifying by not wearing masks and pretending that we should all just go back to normal and that, if you catch it, that's your fault because you voted for Trump. I mean, that's the messaging at this point. Anybody who gets COVID right now is being blamed for it and said, you must be a Republican.
Yeah, and they're pushing the narratives that were unacceptable under Trump. Like while Trump was president, it was unacceptable to say to people not to wear a mask in public spaces. Just that Jill Biden said, doesn't the air just smell so much sweeter without our masks? Like out of microphone, like that's a planned statement. And why do you plan a statement like that? You plan that to encourage people to live their lives normally,
right? Which
you should be doing the opposite. You should be saying, it's great if you're vaccinated. You should at least encourage, if you're vaccinated, to be a little less cautious in certain scenarios. Right. And if more of you get this like don't wear a mask thing is I mean, it's atrocious. It's anti-science.
It's really irresponsible. And especially, I mean, I get it. Like what they're trying to do is show how much sweeter life would be if you're vaccinated. And of course, if we were 100% vaccinated, that would be amazing. But the reason a lot of people aren't vaccinated, yes, is because Trump is an asshole and Republicans have pushed this lie that vaccinations don't help, or that, this is just like the flu or whatever it is.
It's the same climate change nonsense. They just push this whole thing to get votes.
Even though he got vaccinated right away and got like the best care that there was when he was close to death. But I just lost my train of thought because I caught a look at myself in the thing, and I should never do that after 2 glasses of wine. I need to like hide. What they're trying to do, and this is, I put out a tweet today because I'm so mad that they're making this a red state versus blue state thing. And yes, of course they're morons, but like, do we have to? I'm never going to gloat over somebody's suffering. And a lot of the people who are Trump supporters or who don't believe in these vaccinations, there's a reason that they're feeling what they're feeling. And until we deal with the root causes of that, you cannot have a president who says, believe science, but he would veto Medicare for all, and then just passes a bill that gives hundreds of millions of dollars to the healthcare lobby industry, right? Like, that's not believe science. So there's a reason for the skepticism. There's a reason that people don't feel like their government has their best interest at heart. And it's not just because of Republicans. And until we really come to that, until we fix that, to blame some just, person.
Yeah. For me, a big part of that is the media. I mean, you look at the media and they're supposed to be our third estate that people trust fourth. God damn it.
Sorry. It's like real-time correction.
Fourth.
Sorry. I'm doing it.
No, that's all right. I'm going to bleep. In editing, I'm going to make you pay for that. All right.
Give me another chin or neck.
It's going to be graphics. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But
do it. Definitely.
But the fourth estate is supposed to protect us from that. So the fact that people don't trust our media at large leaves us in this situation. And when you turn on the media, if you're on the right and you see, oh, Biden's supposed to be the science guy, and say you're a reasonable Republican who believes in science, you're like, he's pushing the same nonsense Trump was, and CNN is not. They're not covering this, or they're fluffing him up, know. And then Colbert, which we're going to get to, but all these people are. Like, do you like the pivot?
Yeah, it's good. I just got it.
But they, when you see this whole full court press against Republicans and specifically Trump, the media and guys like Colbert, and they're everything they say about Trump is right. It's right. It's all right. Right. But what they don't do is show you the same shit happening on the Democratic side. Exactly. And it's happening at a lesser degree, admittedly. And it's a different tone. It's more lying than anything.
Because they say believe science and trust the experts, but then they still work against the science and the experts.
Right. So you're not seeing their actual, they don't call out that, okay, they made these great quotes about believing in science, but let's show where they're not. It's an easy thing to show where they're not believing in science.
Identical to Trump's actions. Honestly, they prop up the fossil fuel.
Joe Biden signing all the fracking permits the minute he comes into office, when his whole thing was in the first 100 days, he's going to do all this stuff. It's just such bullshit. And it's so easy to point out. Right. And Republicans are uber aware of that stuff. They're not like, we're not in a world as Democrats where we're tuned into that stuff, but Republicans are tuned into, like, he said this first 100 days, he's going to do this stuff, and he didn't do any of it. It's all bullshit. We're going to run on that. We're going to smear him. We're going to attack Democrats because he didn't do these things.
Yeah, I think we're in for a real, not we, because I don't care anymore. It's not my party, but Democrats are in for a world of hurt. They really are insulated. Although I was about to say they're insulated by watching MSNBC and CNN and all the legacy media, but then I see the statistics and it looks like Jake Tapper lost 70% of his audience, all of MSNBC is down by at least 50%. Like, I think people are starting to wean themselves off of the propaganda slowly. Slowly.
I mean, you think it has to set in on some level with a lot of these people, because Trump bad has been the whole mantra forever. Trump bad, Russia,
right,
whatever. But like, we're in a pandemic. Like, if you're focused on January 6th and the Capitol riots, I get once in a while that we should do that, and we should, follow that story. I'm not ever advocating not to make that a story, but like, it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like focus on the people dying from not having health care.
Okay, and getting evicted and not making a wage to live. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to show some of the stats, which you pulled up, and I appreciate that, from New York Times.
Are you about to share a graphic right now? Tell me.
I'm going to pretend to share one.
No, I'm excited.
I'm not looking at it, but
we're so high tech.
I pulled some numbers from one of the graphics you shared.
Okay,
and then I will share some other ones afterwards.
Okay. Let me know.
I only know one graphic.
Okay.
But the graphic that I had the freeze frame of, was the national COVID situation right now.
Right.
So right now, we have in the U.S. An average of 12,914 COVID cases a day.
Yeah.
Every day, 16,991 people are hospitalized from COVID. Every day, 249 and a half people die. Sorry, half person. And 47% of people in the U.S. are vaccinated. So this is not something gone away. Now, granted, okay, deaths 250. You can minimize that number,
right?
But the unwritten story right now is how many people have long COVID.
Exactly. And don't have health care, right? They don't have health care.
So that's where all this comes into play, is that, and so okay, let's talk about this story some more before we get into the other stuff, but the stats, but they don't have health care. And that's the problem. All these people are underinsured and uninsured. And for a global pandemic to not have our media focused on
it's
that our country doesn't have healthcare. Like, is there anything else that can point out how clearly they are not on our side? As if they're on the people's side in this country, they would want to point to the stories, to point to the evidence, to point to what Biden said before to now, and the difference, and how we should get, like, how do we get people covered? Like, that's what you would think the news wants.
Yeah.
How do we get our citizens out of?
That's a story that the richest nation in the world, I think we rank 37th for our healthcare system. It's disgusting. And
terrible.
I will say also, so that the New York Times COVID tracker, and yes, I subscribe to the New York Times, but it's interactive, right? So like you can go to every county in the country and see where people are dying, where people are infected, where people have been vaccinated, how many cases. Today, and I'm going to read this, today there were 23,549 new cases of COVID reported. Okay. So not that 7-day average that you just read, which that's what they highlight. They highlight the 7-day average, but the actual cases, and it was yesterday on the 6th, 23,549 new cases. There were 24,000 new cases last June 2020, when we were all locked down.
We're already getting to the same place we were when we were demanding a lockdown under Trump.
Yep. But now,
and you're right. So the first graphic that they show you on the New York Times is that the daily cases are 12,000. But you just brought up that the 26,000 yesterday or today.
Yeah, 23,549.
23. God damn it.
I just don't want anybody to.
This is worse than the third, fourth estate correction, which was a sin.
I'm ready for that fake left Twitter to call us out on our red brown alliance because we're fudging numbers or some bullshit.
Well, I'm gonna have a Nazi on soon. So
all the boogie boy. What, I don't even know who they are, but yeah. But yeah. So yes, exactly. Continue.
Okay, so this brings up a study that we were looking at, an article we caught from Common Dreams, which is a very progressive independent media news network. Phenomenal. It's an article from a few months ago, but 40% of COVID infections in the US, they found a study we'll talk about in a minute, but were due to uninsurance, people not having insurance. So 40% of the people in this country who got COVID, this study attributed to them not having insurance. 33%, so 1 out of 3 people that died in this country was due to not having insurance.
And that is held up by both parties. So anybody only blaming Trump, who, yes, is disgusting, but only blaming Trump, you're missing so much of the picture. So many people, and you know what? There are a lot of people who don't go to get their COVID vaccination because they're scared they're going to be charged. They don't know, right? People have signed death certificates for their spouses or people in their family and gotten bills from COVID, gotten like tens of thousands of dollars of bills, even though they weren't supposed to get charged at all. We have a really horrific system that terrifies people and penalizes poor people.
Well, and take away the fear and the long COVID effects and all of it from this equation. And just look at the fact that we have a health system that's tied to employment. So COVID hit and the shutdown itself caused, rationally, businesses reacted how they should. I mean, they didn't want to, but they had to shut down these businesses. So these people laid off employees. And we have a system where your whole healthcare system is tied to employment. I mean, this is not how the rest of the world works.
Yeah.
And as an American, people think this is how it works. You go to get a job and then you get your healthcare.
Find a better job. Get a better job then.
But we've been duped into this belief that this is the way things should be. And most countries don't work like that. And most countries with money have universal healthcare coverage. We're just so propagandized that this is normal and okay. Like anytime we get remotely close to this kind of thing, the media does this whole bullshit where they attack Medicare for All, they undermine everything. They have healthcare workers, healthcare.
And then they profile stories about some 11-year-old who sells lemonade to help his mother's cancer bills or something. And that's like
isn't that great?
Story. Yeah.
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 No, that has been really gross. And the other thing, when you're talking about like trust science, the CDC stopped tracing COVID in vaccinated patients. So how do you scientifically examine a virus and the way it spreads when you are no longer doing any kind of tracing in people who are vaccinated? And what happens when they get infected? How does it affect them? How do they spread it, right? Like, I mean, this is anecdotal, but a friend of ours, he's vaccinated. His 2 older children are vaccinated. His 9-year-old was not able to be vaccinated. She got COVID at a play date, came home, and all 3 of the and she got COVID. All 3 of the vaccinated people at home have COVID. Now, if it's not like serious enough for them to go to the hospital, they're not getting. There's no data being done on people like that, right? So where does the science and the data break down when we don't know how it actually affects people who are vaccinated? If the goal is only to punish or to sort of highlight, oh, this is what happens if you're not vaccinated, and then that's where all of your focus is, great. Yes, get vaccinated. I think everyone should be vaccinated. I was vaccinated the second I could be, and so were everybody in my family. But if the CDC is no longer testing people who have mild symptoms because they're vaccinated, then there's a whole chain of contagion that is not being tracked.
Right. And so who do you trust in all this stuff? That's the problem that underlies all of it, is that the CDC used to be the most trustable organization. And then Trump undermined that, but then this didn't snap back under Biden. And let's say you hypothetically trust the CDC, which is advocating it ahead of science to have us all back to work. I mean, I think most people agree that they're pushing it. The US isn't even following the CDC recommendations on this. The rest of the world is following a little more of the CDC recommendations, but the US has just said, we don't even care about the CDC recommendations on some stuff. So,
okay, Pat, I'm going to do it to you again. The WHO.
Yes. The WHO. Motherfucker. I feel like this whole show is a trap.
It is. I'm trapping you. I'm having another glass of wine because I feel like I'm obviously way too on top of things.
Okay, wait a minute. We were good on the CDC, but then I pivoted to WHO.
Yeah.
And because you're informed that I meant the World Health Organization.
I try to read a little. But no, the CDC is actually going against the WHO because
that's what I meant to say.
I know it's
so much.
I know that's what you meant to say because we're like mind melding. And I just wanted to get you back on track of it. I'm focusing on my poor dog who has cancer, who just had her leg amputated. She's right here. So if you see me like,
oh my God,
moving over, I know she
needs to be on camera at some point.
I know if she only could
for posterity
hobble over here. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this has all been really distressing, I think, for the belief science crowd, which I am one of the belief science crowd. Like, I want to believe science. I am pro-vax, I'm pro-medicine, I'm pro all of that, but I am disgusted by what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to say, right?
I got nothing.
All right, so for our next segment, you all owe us big time. We watched it, so you don't have to. Cheers.
Now, this is not as painful as last week with the Pod Save Boys, Pod Save America.
Really?
It wasn't because it was shorter, mostly.
Okay, you're right.
And I like Colbert. I used to like Colbert. I used to like Colbert. So, and Colbert, the thing about Colbert is Colbert he's the bits he shows are funny-ish. You know, they're like, it's got some entertainment to it. The main problem with Colbert is that he's basically carrying water for the Democratic Party. So like he's not criticizing the Democratic Party ever. But before we get into this, I need a bourbon break. So cheers. This is part of all of it.
Cheers.
And thank you, Lila, for. Was that a duck sound? Do you have?
That's my older son Asher. That's the ringtone I have for him. I could press decline on my own child.
Oh, I was picturing you with like a sound box. And I was like, this is next level stuff, Lila. Let's do this. We need a sound box. Urban break. We should do that. But cheers.
Cheers. Okay. So this is what I am struck by over and over with the comedians of these times.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Two things. One is punch up. Punch up. Like that is what we should all be doing all the time. And if you are not speaking truth to power, it's not funny to me. Like it's so easy to make fun of red state people. Who does that help, right? Or Trump voters. But also, I just need to remind Stephen Colbert and all the late night show hosts, Trump is not the most powerful person in the world anymore. That is your president, Joe Biden, who, by the way, can't do anything because of the parliamentarian. Like, punch up. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
That's the whole thing. The idea that our nightly talk shows, which used to be, the Tonight Show, they used to be the nightly critique of whatever president is in power,
right?
And so we watched a Colbert episode, and the entire episode was anti-Trump, which is great. I didn't disagree with him on too much about Trump, but if people are tuning into that and they're not hearing any criticism of our current president, like, why aren't they? It's your job to go both ways with this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's I would argue it's more important. Like, like nothing he says is going to change public opinion on this Trump stuff, which is all in the courts. Like the only, so anyway,
yeah.
I took notes. So I want to bring up one thing.
Yeah. I'm so glad you did.
Notes. Let me get my readers on.
So I know, right?
I'm not going to, because I can do this.
Okay.
But so he was talking about because the New York is going after the Trump organization right now. And he himself mentioned like how excited he was, but like not to people shouldn't get too excited, because he was really excited about the first impeachment and the second impeachment and the
Mueller report and
right.
Yeah.
And so he himself even says like Trump isn't named in this. Like they name everyone else, but they don't name Trump, so you're not going to get Trump out of this, you know. But one of the guys' names is an accountant who they're trying to get to flip to rat out Trump. But it's all this whole like pipe dream of shit that's never going to happen.
It's just like for the TikTok crowd. Remember that at the beginning of Trump's presidency, where it's like TikTok, here comes Mueller, and you're all going to get arrested. TikTok. It's
Oh yeah.
Second now. Yeah.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is like he gets their applause by saying Trump was indicted, and then it shows like he's smart enough to not be doing this, because he's like, I've been burned many times before. It's not happening. But he needed that applause first.
He knows it's not going to happen, right? But so he makes. Okay, so he makes what's well, here's a joke. I don't even want to talk about it. So we'll just say it, and you could judge if it's inappropriate or appropriate. So these charges against the Trump administration, unlike the former president, seem kind of thin. Okay, so I mean, fat jokes are fat jokes, but like on the left, we don't accept them really too much.
Right.
But here he is on national media making it. But that's fine. That's been a thing forever. So I'm not going to say like he's the worst person for that. Right. But it's like such low hanging fruit. Like Trump's fat. Like here we are. Like Biden has been president for how long, and we're making Trump fat jokes. Like. It's just so irrelevant to the whole narrative we should be talking about. So after that, he spends like the monologue was 13 minutes. It was 13-minute monologue, and all of it after that, like that was the first 2 minutes was about this whole section on the sedition report or whatever, which was like showing how dumb Republicans were that were at the Capitol riot about ratting themselves out because they were on microphone saying, subscribe to my podcast, all the dumb stuff. And that's funny. I can appreciate that, how bad they are. Right. But literally nothing in the entire first 13 minutes of his show, which is the monologue, which is where they historically have criticized the current administration. Right. Nothing whatsoever anti-Democrat, or not anti, but just calling out like a current event. Like, what about
poking fun at the structures of power? Not
they're not even poking fun at the Democrats. They're not even poking.
I mean, Democrats are the party in power right now. They're the ones that's supposed to kind of like pick at. Yeah. And the crazy thing, and it was funny because, he has a different relationship with his audience than Bill Maher, whom we watched a couple weeks ago.
Who hates his audience.
But what was interesting was a lot of Colbert's jokes fell flat. Like he went for those, anti-Trump and aren't Republicans so stupid. And it started like those laughs and the claps started to get a little weak. And he was like, okay, folks that I pay to write my jokes, maybe you're not worth the $50 joke anymore. Like they were not getting a huge response because we've been hearing it now for 5 years. It's not funny actually anymore.
Yeah, well, the most openly insulting part was, so he had this 13 minutes of all this drivel, who all of it was like, yeah, I kind of think it's funny. You're all the idiots that expose themselves under the Trump thing. Like, I wasn't at the Capitol riots. And they do something stupid. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So he finishes that up, and then he has a segment where he's like, he's like, okay, everyone, I know you guys have been waiting for me to chime in on the Israel-Palestine situation, and I haven't yet, but here we go. And then he goes to talk, and they interrupt it with a graphic with emergency, what was it? Emergency meanwhile system.
Yeah.
So so the whole setup was he's going to get into something real that we can talk about that affects the country, but it's a hot topic. So they do this fake interruption thing, and then he goes into dick pill stuff it was. Yeah, go ahead.
A penis broke. Like it was like a dumb segment on what you could see on the National Enquirer or whatever. I found that so offensive. There are real travesties, human lives, and the apartheid system happening. You don't like pretend that you're about to do some responsible journalisming and then break it up. Like just don't even go to that. Yeah.
So what people don't understand who don't follow any of this stuff, and this is why this works, is that it's equivalent to saying, like, I'm going to talk about the people dying in your street that are hungry. Oh, no, cut it off, dick joke.
Yeah.
Which is what it was. But for him to have done that is making light of the whole situation. And I don't want to go after comedians, but like that was pretty offensive.
Honestly, I was cutting vegetables as I was watching this because I had to divert myself somehow. And that happened. And truly my jaw dropped. Like, I can't imagine right now. I mean, I could see like Bob Hope doing that or some lame-o comedian in the Catskills like 40 years ago. But right now, we all know way too much. There's no excuse. If you don't have the spine or the courage to address a situation that I don't actually think should take a lot of courage, but if you don't, then don't bring it up at all. But to do it really undermines it in a grotesque way.
It made it such a joke. Like I just had a problem with that. Yeah. But I expected that. I don't know. So the whole thing was about a guy who broke his dick, and he had like he talked about it for 2 minutes, like dick joke. So he goes from like Trump is bad and does that forever, and then distracts you with, I'm going to talk about real stuff, and here's a dick joke for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Like, okay, so remember Colbert from back in the day? Colbert used to be a guy that was a truth teller, and he's just not. Like, he's just not like he should be. So he's like the I don't know, producer or whatever of the president, what the cartoon on
which
HBO,
sometimes is
cartoon presidents.
Yeah, sometimes they do a good job. I think every once in a while I've seen some clips that are
they do, and I know a few of the people that write for them from Twitterland that I've gotten to know and met in real life, and I don't understand the disconnect. Like, so is that moment where he's on mainstream TV, him trying to say, I don't really like, I want to say this stuff, but I can't, but it's so covering both bases that I just got to call bullshit on it. Like,
I think that maybe is the name of the segment from now on. I got to call bullshit, because
I got to call bullshit.
Like, you can't act like you're somebody who is a truth teller or subversive or a satirist on some level and then do something like that. That is just so weak. And it undermines, like, again, it'd be better, just don't discuss it at all. Just go to your dick joke. Like, go from the Trump is orange, mango bad. He calls him mango man or whatever the hell, stupid. Right. Okay, fine. Oh. Go to your dick joke. Don't bring up what's happening where Palestinians, like, they're being fined if they don't destroy their own homes right now. You know, you can't bring that up as a small marker on your way to a dick joke. That's just really lame. So on that note,
let me tell you how to set up a dick joke.
Yeah, there's so many ways to set up a dick joke. She said knowingly on her way to her. I keep going back to prom. Prom was actually a really lovely experience for me several years in a row. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened, but like, I'm not scarred, but I keep being like, my prom, blah, 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 whatever. It's fun.
So
yeah,
never mind. Let's go on. Moving on.
That's kind of it, Pat. We're done. We're moving on.
Oh, we're done?
We're over. You had your bourbon. About a couple things.
Okay.
But I will say that, as much as we criticize people on this show and punch up, that's our job. I think the thing that made us excited about doing this show together is, one, hanging out together, having fun, talking politics and progressive stuff. But the thing that I think so many people on the left are feeling sad about is that, like, what my politics are about is love and like taking care of everybody, and everybody deserves to have food and healthcare and a roof and a dignified life where they're not just like working themselves to death. Like, we're hoping for great, wonderful, full lives for people. And so anything short of that just feels like crap. And that's why we complain. But like, it starts from love.
Well, those are all the things we all connected on back in 2016 for some of us. I mean, publicly, like our first connection for most of us on Twitter land, at least, was 2016. And most of us have not, like the people I know from 2016, Twitter land, who we formed this connection, we haven't changed our views. We are the same people, and we're pushing for like any positive thing we can do. And where you and I disagreed, we never attacked people who disagree with us on strategy, who had the same goals. So,
and even if you disagree with us, we still want you to have healthcare and a living wage and a roof over your head at the bare minimum.
I mean, I can think of 5 people, maybe. I don't want to have that, but let's not go there.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so we're so excited to have our segment One Good Thing this week with Laura Fielding. And we are excited to talk to everybody about whole Washington and the March for Medicare for All.
Yes, and I might be a terrible person, but every week I hope we highlight something that you guys can attach yourself to and help and make the world a better place, even if I'm just going to drink my beer here on this podcast. Laura is the executive director of Red Berets, which is an effort to promote Medicare for All nationally, but also locally for whole Washington, I believe, is part of the group. Welcome. I appreciate being here. And I just want to say that I can't not resist a joke. It's impossible for me. I was actually an executive director for a brief time of an organization that kind of flopped. But I was ED Pat, which I didn't appreciate, because when you get to my age and someone puts ED in front of your name, it's not the most positive thing in the world. All right, back to the real stuff. Sorry, Laura.
Laura, welcome. Okay. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Is this like your third podcast?
Wow, look at you following along.
Following along.
Yes, it is our third, and we are so excited because we want to have a segment every week where we highlight one great thing, and you are certainly doing that. And so we're so thrilled to have you here, and we would love to hear more about what you're doing right now.
What is the Red Berets role right now in all of this stuff that's going on? Oh, this is a perfect, you can see this little 5-point, okay. We have sort of like a bunch of different things that we are the intersection of, and that would of course March for Medicare for All is it's everything and it's everywhere right now. So that's not really like one spoke, but we're trying to connect up and have been for some time. I do want to clarify that the Red Berets were very, very closely associated with whole Washington in Washington state, because I'm here in Washington State and been crafting for Whole Washington. I was inspired to start knitting these before I met Whole Washington, but it was a nurse, Catherine Lewandowski, who saw some of my posts then on like Bernie 220, something on Facebook. I wasn't connected up to any activists, but she saw I was just like posting pictures and saying, let's knit for nurses in the 99%. Because I had voted for Bernie, but I had not been involved with Bernie's campaign. And so that's a little background of the Red Berets. And lately there's been a lot of amazing like boosting and kind of this hashtag knit the revolution. And so a lot of times people are saying Whole Washington are trying to get, or sorry, Red Berets are trying to get healthcare in Washington State. And I just want to make sure everyone that is watching understands that we're the crafters, we're the connectors, we're sort of the creative aspect of the movement. But obviously Whole Washington, the ones with the legislation, who can actually pass this. And I think you both know that, but I want to make sure everybody that's watching this understands that distinction. Okay, so several months ago, I was reached out to by Sharif Snuggs, and he is an activist in New York, and he reached out to say, I want to do a march for Medicare for All. And he'd been like tweeting at me and tagging me in these tweets like, at such and such, will you answer the call? Lock the date, don't be late. And I'm just like, okay, what is this, And finally, so it took a little bit of time because he reached out and we had a Zoom meeting, and this has been months and months back. And he said, I'd really, really like the Red Berets and the Whole Washington to partner. I'd like you guys to partner. I want to help organize this March for Medicare for All. We have a few organizers. We meet every single week. And at that point, I was like, that sounds great. And I can be some help on social media. But we are going to be running a ballot initiative here in Washington State. And what I know about organizing is that's a full-on task, and especially running like a national steering committee and all of that. So, but we jumped aboard as partners, and I tapped Andre Stackhouse, who is the lead organizer of Seattle. And now I feel likely, I don't want to put any thoughts or words in his mind, but if I were him, I would be thinking, thanks, Laura, you just put this on my plate, and now you're not in Slack and you're not in Trello, and I'm so because I'm not very organized, damn it, I'm a knitter. I was like, I'm gonna knit Red Berets for Medicare for All, and now all of a sudden it's Whole Washington, the March for Medicare for All, Kenny Ballantyne's healthcare justice documentary that's, he's bringing it all together. So I'll let you guys get a word in edgewise, but when it comes to that kind of intersection that I'm talking about, that's the kind of stuff. And, now there's debate now that's going on that I'm being brought into about people that don't want us to work at the state level to do this. I don't really want to call out names, and we're not going to do that on this show.
Well, I'd like to ask, because yes, we've all seen, those of us who don't touch enough grass and are on Twitter too much, and have been told.
I feel called out.
Have been told, get out there and organize, get off Twitter, organize. So here are all of you in various ways spending your whole lives organizing and just trying to get this Medicare for All to happen and join the rest of the developed world in any way possible. And you're still getting picked at. And yes, we don't even need to call out specific names, but if you wanted to just sort of address some of those, I think, incredibly bad faith, dishonest attacks, or if you just want to clear up anything that you feel frustrated that you haven't been able to, or you can just tell them to fuck off.
The thing I was talking about just a moment ago, I'm gonna leave that aside. We're working on that. We're working on some positive messaging with that. That's just a separate little wow, all of the different intricacies of trying to coalition bill. When
Leave
it comes
that stuff to us, because that's my specialty. I will take on the trash. I will take the trash out. That's my contribution to this family.
There you go. I like it.
remember this has been a while back, but I added Pat, this was during the Bernie campaign, but it was when somebody was like, and who knits in, why did you choose Republican red? And I was like, I just know, I'm just going to at Pat. And Pat's like, you piece of shit.
That's how I build a coalition. Excuse me, you piece of shit.
But there was no more troll, no more headache. Whatever he said, it was funny, and it shut that shit down right away.
I love it. That's exactly, yeah.
Well, so can I just bring up a little part of this that may not be understood right now is Whole Washington is a ballot initiative. So it is by-stepping the politicians in the state, which is, as a Californian, I mean, I support every way we can push it. Like, if you want to get 4 people together and have a potluck, and there's only 4 people, but it's promoting Medicare for All, and maybe you get one more person in, go for it. If you want to march, go for it. If you want to, whatever. But in California, we pressured all of our representatives to say they would support and pass SB. It's been so long, I forget, but like 452 or something like that. And essentially, it was a state version of Medicare for All. At the time when Trump was going to poll, he was trying to overturn the Affordable Care Act. So we would have been strapped, and this would have protected us.
Yeah.
And our California Democrats, not only did we get enough of them on board to support it, it was literally in their bylaws or their I forget
platform,
what you call it, but
like the platform.
it was in their written platform to pass universal health care. And so they tabled the bill. So, New York just did the same exact. They repeated what California did. So the idea of us, I think it's great to get every politician on record saying they will support these things, but that alone is not going to do it. So if there's a possibility of a ballot initiative, I think it's despicable to not support that. That's my personal view.
It's my personal view too, because number one, it's direct democracy. And in the case of now 1362, and of course, you all won't let me get too sidetracked because we'll have to get back to the huge focus of March for Medicare for All. But if I can just take another second to talk about Whole Washington and ballot initiative 1362. Yes, we had 7 Senate co-sponsors, or 1 prime sponsor and 6 co-sponsors just this last legislative session for SB 5204. And we were blocked from receiving a public hearing. We weren't. So you see, the thing is that Whole Washington all along has been trying to do this on all fronts for many reasons, for multiple reasons. And even those of us that are very, very, very skeptical that we can get anything done through the legislature, we still recognize the value, number one, because now a good portion of people are really aware that, for example, Senator Annette Cleveland, she's a Democrat. The Senate, the Washington State Senate Healthcare Committee is comprised of 11 members, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. They've taken over collectively over $1 million from insurance and pharma and private hospitals. And so this is the reason we couldn't get a hearing for our bill. And it's the reason that they had somebody, a senator who has a relatively clean PDC filing. She gets all of her donations direct from the Washington State Dems and her LD Dems. And she introduced another piece of legislation that was only 4 pages long. It's not a healthcare bill. It's a commission. It's a call to form a commission to study universal healthcare for 4 more years. So that's how they got around scheduling us a hearing. They saw us coming. They knew we were coming. And they said, let's introduce this other phony thing. And of course, you've probably heard a little bit or seen me tweeting about Governor Inslee's phony public option bill that he asked somebody to introduce like last season. So see, this is the thing that's happening. So if there are detractors who don't want us to try to do this at the state level and further, because within the single payer movement, you have some real detractors and some people that have been running narratives for a long time that ballot initiatives harm the movement, right? What if you fail? What if you do this and that? And it's like, how many failures do we have on the legislative level, both state and federally?
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous when we can take this to what we need is 400,000 signatures.
But all of their own narratives work against them, because the narrative has always been against Republicans. Okay, if we give people a benefit, it's impossible to take it away. And so saying that this is going to fail in Washington is just ridiculous. It's going to be hugely popular in Washington.
Yeah.
And it's hard, we know it's hugely popular, right? And as you said earlier, if there were direct democracy, we would already have Medicare for all.
Absolutely. So that the tricky thing about it is getting out and collecting 350,000 qualified, 400,000 signatures. We're going to need quite a few very, very dedicated volunteers, and then even more people who are willing to take a petition and get 20 from their friends and family, 20 signatures. So, we will appreciate we have until the end of December to do that. So it's a really tall order, but I keep saying to people, if you thought, like me, if you really hoped that Bernie and some of these Medicare for All candidates, congressional candidates, if you thought that they were the pathway to achieving Medicare for All, maybe look at a ballot initiative and chip in and donate, or see hey, maybe I can go up to Washington State with a friend and I can spend a few days or a week and gather some signatures, or I have some friends that can go there.
Right.
If we put all of our eggs into I know I did. I organized a ton for Bernie. I know all of us put our heart and soul into making sure that we could get the most progressive president. We put everything we had into that. And it's not to go back and relitigate that. It's just that from moving forward, I hope if we've learned something, I hope one of the things that we've learned is that we cannot continue to put, as far as achieving Medicare for All, we can't put all of our eggs into the electoral strategy. I'm not saying abandon it completely, but I'm saying to quote Georgia Davenport, who founded Whole Washington, a ballot initiative, if passed, will do what it says it's going to do. So again,
ballot initiatives, just for people who don't know or who are maybe skeptical on some level, is that how marijuana legalization has happened in some states?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and ranked choice voting and all of that, and let's
not
get
model for it to grow, right? To pass and then to grow state to state. Yeah.
Right, and what do you know offhand what it would take to overrule the ballot initiative in Washington? Because in California, it's a huge process to overrule it. It's not like the legislation can't just they can't just say, well, we're going to vote on that and vote it out. It's a larger, and I should look it up, but do you know in Washington?
I should too, other than we have precedent from, it would be up to the Ninth Circuit, and then we have precedent that shows us that we think that the Ninth Circuit would be friendly to our, to not doing that, but that's not a very good answer. And I'm sorry.
There's a model.
No, that's fine.
There's a way of moving forward.
It effectively becomes law once that's passed. So they have a long process to try to overturn this if they want, and they will try. But my point was just that. Essentially, when you pass, if people voted in, it is law. It is policy. I'm sorry, not law. It's policy.
And it's contagious, right? Then other states see that, and that's the hope, right? We're the rest of us are all watching you guys. Same-sex marriage. I mean, there's so many things that started as statewide initiatives that became national policy because. Immediately you see that it's a policy that's hugely popular in California, and then everyone here loves it, and it extends to the other states. So anyway.
And not every state, number one, not every state can do a ballot initiative. We understand that. It's 28. Okay. And then break that down further to be not everybody has the population or could handle the risk pool. We understand all of that, right? Washington State is a good candidate, and the financial study is there, and everybody can go and take a look at wholewashington.org and all of the questions and answers, but honestly, to people that still have further questions about it, it's like sometimes I feel on social media like, did that person wake up in a reality where Bernie Sanders is president and we have an uncorrupted Congress? Like, I think looking at the funding, like we all understand that this is much easier to fund at the federal level, that it's cleaner to do at the federal level, that it will cover everybody, and we need national improved Medicare for all. But I think when we're only looking at it through the economic lens rather than the movement lens and the actual political reality lens, I don't understand. We cannot wait until we have an uncorrupted president and Congress.
And
that's my position.
As our hero Barack Obama said, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." Throw that back in all those lib spaces.
And when people show you who they are, believe them. That's been said a million times. And the Democrats have showed us. I mean, in California, New York, we did all the things they are asking us to do in lieu of a ballot initiative.
Right.
We got their pressure. We pressured them. We got their votes. We got them on the record saying they would support this, and they didn't. So it's time to step out beyond the
parameters of what they've decided are the way we're supposed to do it.
Yeah, 100%.
So first of all, thank you. That's amazing what you are doing, what you have been doing. Do you want to, because I know we only have a couple more minutes, do you want to talk at all about the March for Medicare for All? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess with just a couple minutes, first of all, if I only have a couple of minutes, I want to make sure that everybody understands they can go, look, I have a car flag.
And we'll put up all that information in the show.
Okay, also, perfect. Yes, here's my bumper sticker and all my red berets. I'm going to be mailing out a few berets to people at different marches and whatnot. I talked about, I want to give a shout out to Savage Joy, because she's done such an amazing, she's literally booked so many speakers in marches, all across the country. I don't know how, I kind of have a list of different shout outs for speakers.
Yeah, let's get some excitement. Let's hear it. Who do we got? Who's going?
Yeah.
Well, and so first off, what is the date of the march?
Oh, that would be good to know. Yes, the 24th of July. Yes. So we're two and a half weeks away from the big day.
And somewhere near 30 cities are now involved.
38.
What? 38? I had 36 down.
Okay, sorry. I thought
you're probably right. You're probably right. There's probably 2 more added.
I'm going to go stand on my corner and do my own one here just to add. Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles. Nobody asked me to speak. I don't know what's going on, but I'll be there. I'm in LA. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's okay. No, but I will be there. I'm super excited. I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to watch the Twitter feed, and, new announcements are dropping all the time. Yeah. So Shahid Buttar is going to be speaking, and you've kind of seen, all of you, who's speaking in LA. I think for me, one of the big ones, and of course, a really special thanks to Marianne Williamson, because for being the first to step up, and that made it possible, in my mind, to kind of, just have people come out and say, this is a real thing, we're doing this. So that's amazing. And then recently, Reverend Annie Chambers for DC, and she's a Black Panther and member of the Poor People's Campaign, has been a decades-long civil rights activist. And Scott Desnoyers. Scott came and traveled to Washington State for some of the early filming of Kenny Ballantyne's documentary, and he'll be in DC. And also, I want to note, I tend to amplify Dr. Joe Jarvis a lot. He's a conservative doctor. You've been following him. He's a conservative doctor in Utah, number one, because I'm from Utah. And, he's author of The Purple World, Healing the Harm in Our American healthcare system. Yeah. Anyway, so he's going to be speaking in DC, and I think this is really the important thing. And he's also been interviewed for Kenny's documentary. So this is the thing that's really, I think, upsetting the establishment more than anything. I think the reason why so many of these people are coming out to smear is because they're seeing, oh my gosh, we really have like a coalition of real people getting ready to hit the streets in all of these different cities. And I think they're scared. I think it's making some people very, very uncomfortable and nervous. So
that's where you want to be. That's where we want to live.
And here locally, of course, Seattle, we have Shama Sawant and Jason, and 3 congressional candidates will be speaking as well. I guess with Red Berets, we've been really wanting to bring like this solidarity to the movement and to like, hey, let's stop labeling people as state organizers and national organizers. We're all organizers for healthcare justice. I don't even know a single person in all of whole Washington or people that knit Red Berets who are not for. We're all trying to get national. We're doing everything we can. So I hate this and so just to say, we really tried to get a number of big major healthcare orgs aboard this march. But I just think, this is an anti-establishment. We do have some good Democrats and some Democrat candidates. And, this is definitely a coalition where we have some Democrat support and we have some independent support and some Republican support. But ultimately, we have anti-establishment. I don't want to label whole Washington that, but we have people who came out and said, we support force the vote. People who are literally like, we have to do everything we can. Those are the kind of people that you have who are supporting this march. And we're not playing it safe. And whole Washington has never played it safe. We're here to get health care. I was just going to drop an F-bomb. That's what we're here to do.
Good for you.
The FAA has nothing.
They deserve
like
so many F-bombs.
Totally.
You're amazing. We will put, and if you want to just let me know, we'll put all the information underneath so that people can buy Red Berets, follow whole Washington, sign up for the March for Medicare for All. Yes, tell us.
And the berets are fantastic. Unfortunately, like wearing headphones over a beret does not do it justice, but this is one of 2 that I have and I absolutely love it. And it's precious as all hell to me because this is an important.
Do you have
issue.
to talk that? I tried to make you one. I tried to make you one like your cap, like the.
This is the one. And if I didn't have the headphones, it would work, and you would see me. My picture where I look like the French Revolution guy or something.
Yeah, you do. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going for that, but this is the hat. You just can't do it with headphones on.
Yeah. Well, so yes, to answer the question that you asked about, people can go to wholewashington.org. To donate. And that's where we sell the berets because we're actually trying to help because it would be great if we could get an email sent out from national nurses or from Our Revolution National or Bernie's campaign, because that would get us the signatures that we need. And it would also help us raise the grassroots dollars. So we're literally knitting and crocheting Red Berets. People can help us fund this ballot initiative. It's there, we have to union print everything and we print the entire initiative on one page that holds 20 signatures. So it's about $1 a piece. So you can imagine how many signatures you're literally sponsoring if you purchase a Red Beret. And I would love it if we weren't knitting to pay for healthcare justice, but we literally are. So
Laura, you're amazing. Thank you. And all of you. I mean, I'm so inspired and so grateful for everything you're doing. Thank you. In 40 years, people will look back on this and say, oh yeah, I always wanted healthcare for all, but you were out there doing the work. So thank you.
Well, one last thing, I really feel like I'm kind of like this interface, and I really, really, really want to say thank you to the March for Medicare for All, to like the nuts and bolts organizers of it. I've been on steering committee meetings. But I feel like in terms of who has lined up the speakers, who's done like a lot of the legwork, I really want to say thank you to them. I want to say thank you to the first people who reached out and kept persisting, because this is literally what I dreamed about like several years ago, was literally, let's get in the streets with Red Berets on. And so I owe a huge debt of gratitude to all of the people organizing for March for Medicare for All. So, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you a million times over. I appreciate it. To anyone watching, The one good thing you could do, definitely support Laura and the Red Berets for All. Definitely support the Medicare for All March on July 24th.
Yep.
And
mforall.org.
mforall.org. That just rolls off the tongue. This is one good thing you do. Come on, support these people.
One good
They're
thing.
amazing.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You're amazing.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Bye.